The haunting of Greystone Manor. In a quiet little town named Crestwood, stood an aged and forgotten building called Greystone Manor. The manor, with its crumbling facade and twisted vines, had been the subject of local legends for generations. Most townsfolk avoided it, believing it to be cursed, haunted by restless souls. But for a young woman named Lila, it was an invitation to explore her curiosity. Lila had just moved to Crestwood with her husband, Jake, seeking a fresh start in this quaint town. This particular week marked her first birthday away from home, and rather than finding joy in the newfound surroundings, she felt an eerie loneliness enveloping her. With her husband busy fixing up their new home, she pondered how this birthday had slipped by without so much as a phone call from friends or family. The cryptic ambience of the manor ignited a spark of intrigue in her. What better way to celebrate my birthday than by unraveling the mysteries hidden behind those walls, she thought, even as a chill ran down her spine. That evening, the sun dipped below the horizon, and shadows crept across the landscape. Determined, Lila donned a jacket and made her way towards the manor with a flashlight in hand. As she approached the building, the wind whispered through the trees, almost beckoning her to enter. Stepping through the front door, which creaked ominously, Lila was met by an uncanny silence. The air was thick with dust, and the wooden floorboards groaned under her weight. She shone her flashlight around, revealing remnants of a bygone era, faded photographs, distant echoes of laughter, and the smell of mildew. As she ventured deeper into the heart of the manor, a faint melody caught her ear. Someone was singing. "Happy birthday to you." The eeriness of the familiar tune sent shivers down her spine. Who could be here, she wondered. The manor appeared to be desolate, yet the voice was clear and inviting. Driven by curiosity, Lila followed the sound, her heart pounding in her chest. The song led her to a dimly lit room adorned with waxen candles flickering in the non-existent breeze. To her astonishment, a group of spectral figures appeared to be celebrating, a birthday party frozen in time. Confused yet mesmerized, Lila watched as the figures danced gracefully, laughter resonating through the air. One figure, a girl in a pale blue dress, turned to Lila, her voice soothing yet eerie. "Join us, dear friend. It's a celebration." Overwhelmed by the ghostly scene but unable to resist, Lila stepped forward. "But, it's not my party," she stammered. "Nonsense. Today is special for all of us," the ghostly girl beamed. "We're waiting for you. Come, let's share this day." Lila felt an odd connection to these apparitions, as if they were kindred spirits tied to her own existence. They celebrated her, singing the birthday song in chorus as they offered her an ethereal slice of cake that shimmered as if made from starlight. Lila, feeling a warmth she had not expected, joined in their merriment, laughing and dancing beneath the phantom lights. Yet, as the clock struck midnight, the atmosphere shifted. Lila noticed shadows creeping into the corners of the room, darkening the once vibrant celebration. The ghostly figures grew restless, their cheerful expressions twisted into anguish. "Lila, beware," the girl in blue warned, her voice strained. "Not all who share this space wish for joy. They thirst for the living." Before Lila could process the warning, the atmosphere became suffocating, and whispers erupted throughout the room. The ghosts' faces morphed into expressions of fear as they began to vanish into thin air. Terrified, Lila stumbled back, her heart racing. As she turned to flee, the air grew heavy with despair, and she found herself tripping into a bitter darkness. Falling to the floor, she grabbed her flashlight, desperately shining it around. The flickering beam settled on a portrait hanging crookedly on the wall, a girl with hauntingly familiar features. Drawing closer, she realized the painting depicted the girl in the blue dress, alongside a group of other children who seemed lost and sorrowful. Beneath the portrait, an inscription read, "In memory of the lost souls of Greystone Manor." Suddenly, the truth struck her. These were the spirits of children who had once lived there, their happiness extinguished too soon, trapped in the manor, yearning for a gift beyond their grasp, freedom. As she turned to leave, a chill enveloped her, and she stumbled across the threshold. The room faded into shadows as the singing turned into a suffocating silence. In a moment of desperation, Lila called out, "I won't forget you. I promise to remember." The walls shook, and the air thickened with a sense of urgency. From the corner of her eye, she spotted a glimmer, an ancient book lying on a dusty table. It promised a way to lift the curse holding the spirits captive. Without hesitation, Lila grabbed it and bolted back towards the manor's exit. Outside, the moon hung high in the sky, cloaked in ominous clouds. Gasping for breath, Lila knew she couldn't leave without freeing those trapped souls. With the book in her hands, she began to read the incantation inscribed within, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her. The ground trembled as the manor shuddered in response. Shadows spiraled around her, and the very fabric of the air crackled with energy. Just as fear threatened to seize her, spectral figures began to coalesce, swirling like smoke around her. The girl in blue emerged, her expression one of hope. "Release us," she whispered. "Give us our precious memory." With a final surge of courage, Lila poured her heart into the incantation, her voice rising against the howling wind. In a blinding flash of light, the spirits erupted in a chorus of exultation. One by one, they broke free from their earthly bonds and rushed toward the heavens, radiant and free. As the last spirit ascended, the manor imploded inwards, collapsing into a pile of rubble, as if it had never existed. Lila stood in the remnants of Greystone Manor, feeling a release, a weight lifted from her heart. She had formed an unbreakable bond with the spirits, and in freeing them, she discovered a part of herself that had long been buried, a connection to those who longed for joy, just as she had. On her return home, Jake greeted her, a bouquet of flowers in hand. "Happy birthday, Lila. I was worried when I couldn't find you. I was hoping to plan something special." With a gentle smile, she embraced her husband, whispering, "You don't have to. I celebrated in a way I never imagined." From that day forward, Lila carried the memories of the lost souls within her, a reminder that even in darkness, one could find a flicker of light, and that sharing our stories could bridge the chasms of loneliness, connecting us all as one. And though Greystone Manor was gone, the spirit of its stories lived on, a haunting yet comforting echo in the winds of Crestwood. The Haunting of Room 103. In a secluded corner of a forgotten village on the outskirts of Washington, D.C., there stood an old building known as the Greystone Apartments. This dilapidated structure, with its peeling paint and cracked windows, housed 5 floors of cramped little rooms, dimly lit corridors, and a palpable sense of dread that seemed to linger in the air. This was where 3 young men, Mark, Josh, and Kyle, made their home. Mark was the eldest, a determined 24-year-old who had trekked all the way from the sun-soaked coasts of California to chase his dreams in the bustling city. He was a responsible soul, weary but warm, ready to welcome 2 new roommates who had just stepped into the chaos of city life. Josh was the excitable first-year student who thrived on adrenaline, while Kyle was reserved and constantly wore an air of contemplation, as if shadows trailed him wherever he went. Their chosen haven, Room 103, was one of the most ordinary rooms in the building, nothing more than a cramped space filled with dust and old furniture. Despite its unremarkable appearance, there was something sinister about it, a lingering chill that set their nerves on edge. The first few days were a flurry of unpacking and laughter, but a certain unease settled in as night crept into their lives. The building was eerily quiet. It felt as if the walls themselves held their breath. Though Mark tried to shake off the unsettling feeling, even he found it odd how the flickering hallway lights barely pierced the darkness, leaving ominous shadows dancing along the walls. As the days turned into nights, odd occurrences began to unfold. One evening, after a long day, Mark stepped out for groceries, leaving Josh and Kyle to their own devices. While Mark was away, a sudden knock echoed through the hallway, a series of 3 firm, deliberate raps. "Josh, are you going to get that?" Kyle's voice broke the silence. "I thought it was you." Josh felt a shiver creep up his spine. The knocks persisted, louder and more insistent. Josh, curiosity piqued but apprehensive, took a deep breath and approached the door, heart pounding in his chest. He flung open the door, but to his horror, there was no one there. The corridor was empty, save for a chilly draft that sent a shudder through his bones. "Hey, did you see anyone out there?" Josh called over to Kyle, who shook his head, eyes wide with apprehension. "Maybe it's just kids messing around," Kyle suggested, though even he didn't sound convinced. Later that night, as the roommates prepared for bed, Josh couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. An inexplicable dread settled over him, a haunting sensation that something was not quite right. "Do you guys feel like this place is off?" he whispered to Mark and Kyle. "They just need a little time to get used to us." "Maybe the isolation is playing tricks," Mark replied, though he felt a flicker of unease himself. As they turned off the lights, an unsettling silence enveloped the room. The shadows grew longer, and soon, Kyle lay awake, plagued by restlessness. The moments stretched into hours as he tossed and turned. Suddenly, from the corner of the room, a soft, eerie sound filled the air, a faint whispering that sounded like lost souls calling out from the beyond. Heart racing, Kyle sat up and glanced around. He could see Josh, seemingly deep in sleep, but there was something unusual about the way he was lying, his body rigid, and his breathing shallow. "Josh?" Kyle's voice trembled. When there was no response, Kyle reached over to shake him awake, only to find his friend eerily still, as if entranced. Frantically, Kyle turned to Mark, who was still awake. "Mark. Something's wrong with Josh." Mark sprang up, rubbing his eyes, and as he did, the whispers crescendoed into an almost deafening murmur. "Mark, do you hear that?" Before they could react further, the temperature in the room plunged, and suddenly, a ghostly figure appeared, hovering at the foot of their bed. Its eyes glowed cold and hollow, its mouth stretched into a dark grin. "Leave this place," it rasped, a sound that sent icy fingers creeping up their spines. Mark shoved Kyle, and they both scrambled towards the door, but it slammed shut before they could make it. Panic surged through them as they pounded against the door, desperately trying to escape the apparition. Just then, Josh bolted upright, eyes wide open, as though waking from a deep sleep. "What's happening?" he yelled, looking back and forth between Mark and Kyle. "There's something here," Mark shouted, terror etching his features. In a frenzy, the 3 friends pushed against the door. "We need to get out," Josh shouted, but the whispers grew louder, the figure looming closer. With a surge of adrenaline, they finally managed to force the door open and fled into the darkened corridor. The air was thick with fear. They rushed down the stairs into the lobby as the whispers faded away, leaving only the sound of their racing hearts. Once outside, they gasped for breath, the cool night air swirling around them like a protective shield. The sense of dread still clung to them, but they were finally free of room 103 and its chilling grasp. As they stood outside, trying to comprehend the night's events, Mark looked back at the building. "We can't stay here anymore," he declared, voice trembling. "Whatever that was, it wants us gone." With determination, They made their way into the night, leaving the Greystone apartments behind, knowing they had narrowly escaped a dark fate that lingered within its haunted walls. They exchanged uneasy glances, knowing they would never speak of room 103 again. And thus, the once vibrant dreams of three friends faded into the haunting echoes of a place best left forgotten. The Haunting of Scarsdale Manor. In the secluded town of Scarsdale, an old manor stood shrouded in fog, its crumbling walls whispering secrets of the past. Strange occurrences had been reported lately, events that brought both fear and curiosity to the townspeople. What was hidden within those eerie halls? On a stormy night in early autumn, Eleanor found herself alone in the manor after her recent move. The chilling wind howled outside, making her shiver as she aimlessly scrolled through her phone, her spirits dampened. To stave off her loneliness, she cheekily posted a status on social media, "I wish I could escape to a faraway place." The gloomy weather certainly didn't invite adventures, but Eleanor's heart yearned for company, especially from Brandon, the young man with whom she shared a tender, yet unspoken connection. They had known each other for almost 6 months, and though the townsfolk often speculated about their budding romance, neither had dared to confess their feelings. It was a bittersweet tale of young love, filled with shyness and hesitation. Living in the eerie Scarsdale Manor with her sister, Eleanor felt out of place, especially being a fresh art student in a bustling city. The residents were distant, often passing each other in the hall without so much as a greeting. But Brandon was different, a friendly architecture student with a charming smile and a kind spirit. From the moment they met on the day she moved in, their shared passion for art sparked an instant bond. As they exchanged painted canvases and chatted about their artistic aspirations, Eleanor felt her comfort with him grow. It was natural for Brandon to pop by her apartment, offering to help her carry her supplies or check in on her work. They shared laughs, stories, and ambitions, but always circled around the unaddressed tension in the air, a tension neither of them dared to unravel. Days turned into weeks, and their bond deepened. They ventured to distant cafes, explored art galleries, and even shared the thrill of painting together. But despite the growing affection, they remained in the realm of mere friendship, each too afraid to risk what they had. Yet Eleanor's nights were often plagued by unease. The manor creaked ominously, shadows danced beyond her window, and the air always felt thicker after dusk. To alleviate her fears, she took to social media again, posting about her anxious thoughts, hoping Brandon would notice and offer solace. She often found herself alone, painting late into the night, trying to capture the beauty of her turbulent emotions. One particularly chilly evening, Eleanor's sister was delayed at work, leaving her alone in the vast, empty manor. She wrapped herself in a blanket, brush in hand, trying to find inspiration. However, weariness took over, and she drifted into a restless slumber, only to wake up startled, her room colder than she remembered. As she pulled herself from the verge of sleep, the window banged shut against the wind, reminding her that she had closed it before. A shiver ran down her spine as she noticed an unusual draft creeping through the room, and a haunting lull echoed through the empty halls. It felt as though the manor itself was sighing in despair. She quickly scooted to her door, wanting nothing more than to escape the encroaching darkness and its unsettling whispers. Yet as she stepped into the dimly lit corridor, an ethereal sound lingered, a distant weeping that sent chills racing down her back. Just as her courage faltered, a sudden knock at her door jolted her. Panic surged through her veins, and she screamed, "Who's there?" "Eleanor. It's Brandon. Open the door." His voice rang out, laced with urgency. Relief washed over her. She opened the door, throwing her arms around him. "Oh, thank goodness you're here," she sobbed, the weight of fear and loneliness collapsing upon her. Brandon, looking equally shaken, reassured her. "What happened? You looked terrified." After regaining her composure with a glass of water in hand, Eleanor recounted the haunting events of the night. "There was something crying, something coming from the walls," she explained, her voice trembling. Brandon listened closely, a mix of empathy and unease flickering in his eyes. They agreed to investigate the source of the unsettling sounds together, stepping cautiously into the heart of the manor's shadows. As they wandered deeper, the cries grew clearer, resonating within the very walls themselves. They followed the ghostly echoes until they reached Eleanor's latest painting, a vivid canvas depicting a sorrowful figure cloaked in darkness, crying beneath a brilliant moonlight. "No," Eleanor whispered, her eyes widening in realization. "That's where the sound is coming from." The atmosphere thickened with dread as they approached the painting. The figure seemed to pulsate with a life of its own, a gateway to the realm beyond. The cries amplified, reverberating against her painted representation of sorrow and despair. Suddenly, the lights flickered, and the coldness of the room intensified. In a bout of courage, Brandon reached towards the painting, his fingertips grazing the surface. As he did, an unseen force erupted from the canvas, a swirling mist emerged, engulfing them both. In that moment, the tears of the painted figure spilled forth, their essence pouring into the air. "We should leave," Eleanor cried, but it was too late. The edge of reality dissolved around them, pulling them into a nightmarish realm of apparitions and lost souls. Eleanor gasped as they found themselves standing in a dimly lit graveyard, surrounded by drifting spirits, their anguished expressions radiating the same sorrow from her painting. She took a step back, horrified, as a spectral figure stepped forward, its voice a mournful wail that echoed in the night. "Help us, free us from this torment," it pleaded. Brandon turned to Eleanor, the gravity of their situation sinking in. "We need to help them," he said, a determination gleaming in his eyes. She nodded, knowing that in order to escape this specter's grasp, they had to engage with the spirits and understand their pain. With trembling hands, Eleanor and Brandon began to paint once more, this time the sorrowful figures from the graveyard emerging on their canvas. Perhaps through art, they could bridge the chasm between life and death. As the last brushstroke was laid, a luminescent light enveloped them, washing over the spirits around them. The cries transformed into whispers of gratitude, and a tidal wave of relief cascaded through the realm, finally liberating the tormented souls bound to the manor. Eleanor and Brandon found themselves abruptly back in her room, breathless and shaken, the painting resting quietly on the easel, devoid of the sorrowful figure. After that night, the manor remained quiet. The cries, the whispers, and the chilling winds were replaced with a blessed peace. Though they had faced the haunting together, their shared experience forged a bond that transcended mere friendship, a connection intertwined with art, loss, and the ethereal dance of life and death. As they stood in front of the now blank canvas, Eleanor looked up at Brandon, her heart full. "I guess we'll never have to worry about things that go bump in the night again," she joked, a lightness returning to her spirit. Brandon chuckled, or at least not without company. And in that moment of levity, they both absorbed the haunting lesson learned, the importance of connection, compassion, and the courage to confront the fears that lurked in the shadows. The haunting of Willow Creek. Nestled along the banks of the great Mississippi River lies a forgotten town known as Willow Creek. Legends whispered among the townsfolk tell of its haunted history, deep-rooted in loss and sorrow. The river, which glistens under the sun and sparkles at dusk, hides secrets darker than its deep waters. Decades ago, Willow Creek was vibrant with life. Its streets were once alive with laughter, children's voices, and the bustle of daily activities. The townsfolk lived simple lives, farming the fertile land that bordered the majestic river. However, one fateful summer, a tragic event would alter the course of its history forever. Among those who called Willow Creek home were two young souls, Elizabeth and Darrow. They were childhood friends who had blossomed into a devoted couple, their love as boundless as the Mississippi itself. They shared dreams, laughter, and the promise of forever. Every evening, they'd meet at the riverbank, where the water glimmered in shades of blue and green, creating a magical backdrop for their dreams. One summer evening, the couple, enchanted by the shimmering surface of the river, decided to take a swim. The dusk skies painted themselves in hues of orange and pink as they dove into the cool water, oblivious to the warnings that echoed around them. The townsfolk had always cautioned against swimming in the river, especially during the late hours when the current ran swift and wild. As the couple played and laughed in the water, an unseen force stirred beneath the surface. The current, stronger than they could have imagined, pulled them deeper and deeper until, in a matter of moments, they were engulfed by the river's power. Their joyous laughter turned into frightful screams as the water embraced them, dragging them away from the safety of the shore. Their bodies were never found. The town of Willow Creek mourned the loss of Elizabeth and Darrow. The once bustling streets fell silent, consumed by grief. Rumors spread of sightings near the river, tales of a soft glow emanating from the water, accompanied by laughter echoing through the trees. The townsfolk grew wary of the river, avoiding its banks as the once glistening waters took on a darker shade, as though mourning the loss of the sweethearts. Over time, the couple became part of the town's folklore. Children whispered their names in haunted tones, while the elders spoke of them with respect, for it was said that the lovesick spirits still roamed the riverside, searching for one another. One warm evening, a young family visiting Willow Creek decided to take a stroll along the riverbank. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting an eerie twilight glow over the world. As they walked, the parents shared the story of Elizabeth and Darrow with their curious children. "Some say if you watch closely at dusk, you might catch a glimpse of them," shared the father, his voice low and suspenseful. Suddenly, the family halted. They all turned toward the river as a soft, ethereal light began to dance upon the water's surface. The children gasped in delight. They thought it was fireflies. But as they took a closer look, their excitement shifted to bewilderment. There, at the water's edge, stood two glowing figures, unmistakably youthful, their forms wispy and translucent. "Elizabeth! Darrow!" one of the children shouted, and the figures turned toward them, smiles radiating warmth and joy. However, the joy was tinged with an unearthly chill. The family felt a flood of emotions wash over them, love and sorrow intertwined. The couple began to move, their laughter echoing, lilting like a song drifting with the breeze. But as they drew closer, the family's joy shifted back toward fear. They realized the couple had no feet, their forms flowing ethereally like glimmering river mist as they roamed the shore. Word spread through Willow Creek, igniting curiosity as more townsfolk began to visit the river at dusk. They hoped to catch a glimpse of the spectral couple. Night after night, the riverbank became crowded, with people whispering and sharing stories, hoping to uncover the mystery of the glowing lovers. However, the cheerful visits came with an ominous warning. A local historian, old and wise, warned them of a curse that accompanied the lost spirits. "They are trapped between worlds, unable to find rest," he said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "And those who glimpse their love may find themselves drawn to the water's embrace." A group of teenagers, emboldened by rumors and the excitement of the supernatural, decided to test their courage one stormy night. Under the cover of darkness, they sneaked away from the safety of their homes and made their way to the riverbank. The moon hung low and full, illuminating the scene with an almost eerie glow, enhancing the sense of wonder and dread. As they reached the river, the air grew thick with energy. The teenagers began to call out the names of Elizabeth and Darrow, eager to provoke a response. Suddenly, the waters began to churn violently as a strong wind swept across the banks. The ethereal lights appeared yet again, hovering above the water, drawing closer with every heartbeat. "Do you see them?" one of the girls whispered in awe. Yet, unwittingly, another boy whispered, "Let's swim. Let's join them." Ignoring the whispers of caution from his friends, he dove into the water. Instantaneously, the current pulled him under, grasping him with the same ferocity that had claimed Elizabeth and Darrow years prior. The others screamed, frantically reaching for him, but the lights they had summoned flickered ominously. It was not merely the physical current that pulled him under, but the enticing allure of the spirits. He felt a tug, as if they were calling to him, promising joy and laughter in an eternal embrace. As darkness enveloped him, he caught a fleeting glimpse of Elizabeth and Darrow, their faces serene, beckoning him closer. Pulled by the siren call of their laughter, he felt himself slip away from reality, drifting toward a realm of peace beyond the pain of living. The water swirled around him, dark and cold, and the last thing he heard was their playful giggle, echoing like a melody in his mind. The following day, the townsfolk searched for the boy, and although they called his name, the river remained unfazed. The townspeople mourned his loss, and whispers of the curse grew stronger. Fear settled over Willow Creek. The legend was no longer just a tale, it was woven into their reality. That evening, as twilight settled, a new family visited the town unwittingly. They had heard the stories, intrigued by what they had thought was merely folklore. The river glittered under the fading sun as they approached the water's edge, the adults smiling while the children played, unaware of the growing specter looming over them. In the water, glowing figures danced once more, their ethereal laughter mingling with the sounds of the children. The family noticed the couple for the first time, their radiant glow captivating. Yet, amid the laughter, a warning flickered, a hint of sadness in the way the couple danced. As night fell, the adults became wary, sensing an eerie presence that surrounded them. They gathered their children, hoping to leave before the enchantment of the river claimed them too. But the children, entranced by the glowing couple, begged to stay longer. Realizing the grave danger, the parents began to panic, urging their children away from the riverbank. However, the river's seductive whispers grew louder, the laughter echoing like a spell meant to ensnare them. The couple, once full of joy, began to look forlorn, as if searching for something they could not have. Finally, as the river swelled with darkness, the parents managed to pull the children back, urging them towards safety. They fled from the haunted banks, and as they turned one last time to glance back, they saw the couple standing still, staring longingly as the laughter faded into haunting silence. Days turned into weeks, and the story of the haunted river of Willow Creek spread well beyond the borders of the town. Those brave enough to visit described the shimmering figures, their laughter echoing in the wind, but few dared to swim in the waters. The townsfolk learned to respect the river, acknowledging the spirits of Elizabeth and Darrow, keeping their memory alive through whispered tales and candlelit vigils. And so, the river continued its flow, dark and deep, never forgetting those who had drowned, while the spirits of the lovers colored its shores with their ethereal glow. They were bound together, entwined in love and loss, forever roaming the banks of the river they once cherished. The townsfolk found a way to honor their lost children every summer with a festival, lighting candles along the banks and telling tales of the couple who dared to swim on that fateful night. It became a night of remembrance, a celebration of love that transcended the boundaries of life and death. Laughter and music filled the air, but with every sunset, a haunting reminder drifted into the sky, the glow of Elizabeth and Darrow, forever dancing along the river edge, illuminated by the love they shared. As twilight descended, casting shadows along the water's edge, those who dared to visit would catch glimpses of the couple, two young lovers, bound by their fate, forever reliving their final moments in the haunting embrace of the river, a poignant reminder of the depths of love and loss. Willow Creek stands today as a testament to love, loss, and haunting memories written in the flowing waters of the Mississippi. To this day, couples venture to the banks of the river to witness the ghostly glow of the lovers who never found peace. Whether day or night, their love story echoes like a chant among the rustling leaves, binding the town to a love eternal, a haunting reminder of what once was and could have been. The river whispers softly, weaving tales of those who dare to love, and leave, never to return. And so, the haunting of Willow Creek continues, for where love is, shadows will always linger by the river. The Vanishing Flight, a haunting on 10,000 feet. In the distant horizon of time, on a warm spring morning in 1972, Flight 7472 departed from Los Angeles International Airport, its passengers unaware of the turbulent destiny that awaited them above the clouds. It was a typical day in the skies, as holiday travel sent families rushing to their destinations. Among them was a young mother named Lily, clutching tightly to the hand of her 3-year-old daughter, May. They were en route to Shanghai, where her husband, David, awaited their arrival. As the engines roared to life, the plane filled with chatter, laughter from children, murmurs of excitement from couples, and the gentle hum of travelers settling into their seats. Lily looked out as the cityscape faded, taking with her hopes of a family reunion. Her husband had secured a new job in Shanghai, and this visit was crucial to their reconnection. Unbeknownst to them, this journey would bring an everlasting sadness to the lives of many. A few hours into the flight, clear skies turned ominous. Heavy clouds rolled in suddenly, with turbulence rattling the plane like an uninvited guest. The passengers exchanged anxious glances, the jovial atmosphere shifting to one of concern. Lily, holding May close, hummed a lullaby to soothe her daughter amid the growing unease. The flight attendants rushed about, their smiles faltering as they managed the shifting mood. Suddenly, the plane jolted with a violent tremor, and a voice crackled over the speaker, struggling to maintain calm. "Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing some turbulence. Please fasten your seatbelts." Just as the pilots sought to reassure the passengers, the turbulence escalated into something far more sinister. A piercing silence enveloped the cabin, enveloping all in dread. Then, in the blink of an eye, the plane vanished from the radar, like a whisper in the wind. Hours passed, and the ground crew at both ends waited in vain. Friends and family members were left in excruciating uncertainty. What had happened? Where had the plane gone? Days turned into weeks, and no trace of Flight 7472 could be found. The world mourned, and the mystery only deepened. Years later, in the summer of 2020, a group of experienced skydivers embarked on an expedition. They sought to conquer the skies above the Pacific Ocean, near where the ill-fated Flight 7472 had disappeared. Among them was Emma, intrigued by the plane's ghostly legend. The story had become a cautionary tale, echoing through the ages as families recounted the tragic event, whispering tales of that vanishing flight. As the jumping crew soared through clouds, Emma felt a chill penetrate the summer warmth, but she brushed it aside as excitement overtook her. However, once they landed on a forgotten airstrip, a peculiar stillness settled around them. It felt eerie, almost otherworldly. They decided to set up camp for the night, sharing stories under a canopy of stars. It was then that Emma's friends dared her to explore Ghost Row, an abandoned airplane graveyard not far from their site, rumored to be haunted. With a flashlight and a deep breath, Emma ventured into the graveyard. Shadows danced through the abandoned fuselages, each wreck holding its own secrets of loss and abandonment. As she navigated through the hulk of rusting metal, she began hearing a soft sound, a gentle humming, merging with the wind like a fragile melody. Curiosity spiraled into a grip of fear but somehow drew her closer to the sound. In what seemed like a dream, she stumbled into the remains of an old airplane, a fuselage painted in peeling crimson and beige, translucent in the moonlight. Unbeknownst to her, she had unwittingly entered the realm of Flight 7472. As she took a step inside, an ethereal glow filled the cabin, illuminating the darkened aisle. And there, before her eyes, stood a spectral figure, a young woman in a flowing white dress, hair swirling like mist around her face. Emma was paralyzed with both awe and terror as she realized the woman was looking right at her, eyes filled with a sorrow deeper than oceans, searching, pleading. As she approached, Emma felt a strange compassion wash over her, as if she could sense the woman's heartache in her own veins. "Where is she?" the ghostly presence whispered, her voice soft yet laced with despair. "I need to find my May." Emma's heart broke. She understood, that haunting spirit was Lily, forever searching for her lost daughter, never able to reunite with her in life. The more she listened, the more she learned about the doomed flight. The story of love, loss, and longing transcended time, stitching together the past and present in a tapestry soaked with tears. "No one knows," Emma spoke softly, as if the very air around her would shatter with loudness. "No one knew what happened, but I can help." With a flick of her flashlight, Emma illuminated the aisle where the ghost wandered, and in that moment, Lily's translucent form began to shift, becoming less solid yet more sorrowful. "I only want to see my May, just one more time." Tears rolled down Emma's cheeks as she witnessed Lily's desperate yearning. She now understood, Lily would not bring harm, she was a mother. A mother trapped between the realms, forever searching for the innocence she had lost. As Emma stepped back, her mind raced with thoughts of more than just a story. What if she could somehow bring closure? Words became a chant, and she began speaking of love, of bravery, of a mother's will. Laying her hands on the seat where Lily once sat, she closed her eyes. "You can let go, Lily. You can find her in your heart." With each breath, she spoke for the mother, iterating her love, the warmth of holding her child, memories shared in fleeting afternoons. Slowly, the spirit began to dissolve into shimmering light, and Lily smiled for the first time, a bittersweet smile filled with understanding. "Thank you," she whispered, the horrifying sadness fading into peace. The ghostly figure lifted, flowing toward the vast expanse of stars. Emma felt a rush of wind as the cabin filled with the gentle hum, a lullaby sung beneath the moonlight, radiating through her soul. Suddenly, in a final flash, the plane and its secrets vanished, leaving Emma alone in the graveyard, illuminated only by the soft glow of the stars above. When dawn broke, her friends found her kneeling, tears against the warm earth. Emma shared the story, weaving tales of joy, sorrow, and redemption, allowing them to understand the power of love that transcends life and death. They left the graveyard, now filled with a bittersweet feeling, knowing that some mysteries are meant to be honored, not solved. And somewhere, amidst the clouds, a reunited spirit found solace, and somewhere far away, a husband continued to wait, unaware that the love connecting them would never truly fade, destined to shine on, just like the stars. Years later, the legend of Flight 7472 became an urban myth, a story passed down through generations. The ghost of Lily was painted not as a harbinger of grief, but as a symbol of eternal love, a reminder that no matter where life may lead, a mother's heart would always follow her child. Every now and then, in quiet moments, where the air is still and echoes of laughter mingle with silence, one might catch a glimpse of a glowing spirit, wandering the aisles of forgotten plains, carrying whispers of love, forever searching, never alone. And though she may roam the skies, she would always find a way back, for love has no boundaries, not even the ones created by fate or time. Whispers of the Damned. The town of Eldridge Hollow, nestled deep within the misty realms of the Whispering Pines. Gravity-defying trees loom over a forgotten road, shadows whisper in the wind, and restless spirits roam in eerie silence. In the ethereal stillness of night, the atmosphere in Eldridge Hollow turned palpably sinister as two specters hovered above the gnarled trees. The ghastly white shade named Adriel and the haunting black shade known as Morwen. They exchanged heavy glances as the cold wind carried whispers of dark intentions. Clearly, a malevolent aura has manifested here, Morwen intoned, his voice low and chilling. It once vibrated with furious echoes, but now, it fades. Eyes locked onto a dilapidated cabin hidden among the forest, Adriel's ghostly countenance glimmered with curiosity. There's nothing. Has it dissipated? Let's move on, Morwen hissed ominously, his spirit flickering with impatience. Meanwhile, in the depths of the grove, a young man, dressed in a white cloak, wrestled with the unutterable truth about himself. Elijah was a tortured soul, a fallen spirit trapped between realms. He lingered close to his dear friend Owen, whose lively essence radiated warmth and fervor, igniting embers of hope throughout Elijah's torment. Elijah's thoughts turned dark as he feared that revealing his truth would sever Owen's affection. If he knows, he will shun me, he contemplated, longing for this moment to last. In the quiet of the night, Owen sensed something amiss, his voice soft and concerned. "Why are you silent, Elijah? Speak to me." Not ready to divulge, Elijah replied mournfully, "I wish to bask in your warmth a bit longer." Speaking only pushes it away. As they shared the solitude of the night, Owen suggested, "Why don't we share a shelter, just for tonight? I wouldn't mind sleeping outside as long as I'm with you." Elijah hesitated, understanding the looming shadows of his past that threatened to swallow that night in darkness. "Allow me to adjust this canopy for you," he murmured. "Ah, what a gentleman." Owen puffed, eyes gleaming with mischief. "What? You can't bring yourself to call me, brother? Is that so hard?" "Brother," Elijah repeated reluctantly, fear burrowing in his heart. their bond now cloaked in a veil of despair and longing. Strict silence enveloped them, until a rustling in the leaves stirred the air, followed by a malevolent breeze howling like wolves in a distant midnight. High above, Adriel and Morwen circled relentlessly, sensing a shift. "What was once fervent energy now grows faint," Morwen hissed. Adriel clutched their spectral ledger tightly. "We can't let this one escape. A lingering spirit must not thrive in a life force." The two wraiths floated down, intrigued by a flicker in the cabin's window. Inside, Owen slept, wrapped beneath his quilt, unaware of the encroaching shadows. The night deepened, and the supernatural tension heightened with every passing moment. Convinced that Elijah was siphoning vitality from Owen, the voids of the black and white specters descended silently upon the pair nestled in the cabin. "Do you feel it?" Owen asked absent-mindedly, waking suddenly, as a shiver coursed through him. "Something's off." Elijah whispered, fixing his gaze outward, "No. It's just the wind." Yet, in the darkest corner of Eldridge Hollow, a flicker of pale light caught Owen's eye. "Why does your form shimmer?" he asked curiously. For a moment, uncertainty flashed in his eyes. "It's just the moonlight," Elijah lied, but the pulsing dread only intensified. Days turned into weeks as the presence of the specters grew stronger. Elijah found himself torn between saving Owen and slipping into the embrace of the shadows. As night after night passed, Owen's conversation dwindled, and he grew paranoid, haunted by whispers unseen. "I can hear them too, you know," Elijah finally confessed, desperation in his voice. "They come for me. They sense my despair. They want to claim you." "But why?" Owen replied, panic reverberating through him. "Because I am not who I seem. I am bound here, caught in a cycle of anguish." Elijah trembled as the ground beneath them pulsated. Every night, the whispers grew louder, echoing ominous omens. Gradually, Owen learned the dark tale that tied Elijah to Eldridge Hollow, and it unraveled his sanity. Unbeknownst to both, Adriel and Morwen conspired to seize Elijah's spirit, creeping closer, forever lurking in the periphery. Meanwhile, a street lamp flickered, and a figure cloaked in darkness appeared before Owen at the edge of the forest. It was the host, a demon with a chilling grin, beckoning him to confront his worst fears. "Do you wish to free Elijah?" the host rasped, its voice snaking through the shadows. "Then face the remnants of his torment. Embrace the darkness." Nauseous dread twisted Owen's stomach. "I don't want to," he exclaimed, fear colliding with resolve. With a sinister chuckle, the host uttered, "You're already knee-deep in shadows. Any choice you make now leads to ruin." Owen hesitated, the weight of despair hanging defeatingly upon his shoulders. "I will not join them," he cried defiantly. "If Elijah is lost, I will follow him to hell if I must." The specters howled in delight as Owen marched willingly toward the cabin, teeth gritted against the cold fingers of dread reaching out to him. Within the cabin, Elijah felt the pull of Owen's spirit. His heart raced with hope mixed with fear. "Do not come closer," he pleaded. "You do not know what you invite." But Owen's eyes burned bright with determination. "I will save you, Elijah." A violent gust shattered the inner walls of the cabin, the spirits writhing and clashing against the intimate fortress. Shadows waged a war of fury. The specter's cold grip threatened Elijah's fragile existence. "Join me," Adriel cried, his voice shrill and desperate. "We shall be eternal. The warmth you seek will only smother you. Free yourself from this mortal coil," Morwen echoed, "and accept the fate we bring." But Owen stood defiantly, unwavering even as the shadows whirled around him, their wails echoing in tune with the wretchedness of their pasts. "No. I refuse to let you take him." A blinding light erupted from Owen, sparked from his love, illuminating the shadows scheming to ensnare them. Elijah recoiled in awe as a formidable barrier formed. Radiant courage clashed against the abyss, casting brilliance like the dawn of a new world. "That brightness," Elijah gasped as the light began shredding the darkness. He felt a warmth spreading through him, igniting defiance. "Love will conquer your despair," Owen shouted, eyes shining with fierce commitment. "Together, we will erase the dark beyond." And as dawn broke against the horizon, painting the skies with hues of gold and violet, the spirits shrieked and twisted, for love, as ethereal as it was, could not be extinguished by darkness. Its blaze shattered the chains binding Elijah. With a final scream of fury, Adriel and Morwen dissipated into nothingness, their grasp shattered, their shadows crumbling to dust before the light of love. And in Eldritch Hollow, bathed in warmth and light for the first time, Elijah and Owen remained entwined, ever after free from the clutches of despair, proof alike that even in the deepest darkness, the light of love can carve a path of unyielding shadows, where hope reigns eternal. As the sun rose higher and Eldritch Hollow awakened, the silhouettes of the past faded, and the echoes of the damned were silenced forevermore. Whispers of the Forgotten. The Haunted School. Once upon a time, in a small town in Vietnam, nestled between verdant hills and flowing rivers, there lay a school that carried with it the weight of dark history. The village, once bustling, bore the scars of war, particularly the Vietnam War, which had claimed many brave souls. After the war had ended, the survivors began to rebuild, laying bricks and mortar to create homes, shops, and schools where children could learn and laughter could return. Yet, in their haste to restore normalcy, they overlooked one crucial fact: the ground beneath their feet was soaked with the blood of soldiers who had once fought for their homeland. Resting above this silent graveyard was the Nguyen Thi School, a rambling structure that housed children from all around. The building boasted fresh paint and cheerful murals, its classrooms filled with laughter and mischief. But as night fell, the atmosphere shifted. Shadows danced longer, and a chill crept into the air. It started simply enough. Children would speak of whispers in the hallways, soft voices echoing conversations that seemed to have no source. At first, the teachers thought it was merely the figments of an imaginative childhood. "It's just the wind," they would say, dismissing the children's stories with a wave of their hand. Even so, a curious wave of apprehension rippled through the town. But things escalated one stormy evening. As thunder rumbled above and rain pelleted the windows, a group of students was staying late to prepare for an upcoming performance. In the dim light of the old library, Ms. Lon, the school librarian, was organizing shelves when a loud crash echoed through the hallways. Rushing out of the library, the children followed her, their hearts racing. To their astonishment, they stumbled upon the sight of soldiers. Tall and somber, they marched as if in formation, their uniforms faded but still holding solemnity in their appearance. The children blinked, and just like that, the soldiers dissolved into the mist, leaving naught but a haunting silence. Word spread quickly through the village. The school was haunted. A group of brave students decided to investigate. They were led by Bao, a courageous boy with a flair for adventure, and Mai, who was sensitive to the spiritual world. Determined to uncover the truth, they embarked on ghostly nightly escapades. Armed with flashlights, they sneaked into the school grounds, their hearts pounding with fear and thrill. They discovered strange occurrences, windows rattling, cold drafts, and even the faint sound of bugles echoing through empty halls. "Look," shouted Bao one moonlit night, pointing towards the old gymnasium. They witnessed luminous figures practicing drills and routines, their expressions set in focus. The students stared, transfixed by the scene unfolding before them. It was as though time had folded back on itself, allowing them to glimpse into a past where bravery and sacrifice reigned supreme. As weeks passed, the haunting escalated. The spirits grew restless, unable to find peace. They began to manifest more often, seeking the attention of the living. The students reported eerie sightings of glimmering soldiers standing vigil by the classrooms, their mouths moving silently, as if delivering urgent messages. Then one fateful night, Mai dreamt of a soldier named Hui. In her dream, he appeared weary and lost amidst smoke and battle, his eyes filled with sorrow. He pleaded with her, "We have not left. This ground is our home, we were here defending it. The living have ignored us, but our voices echo, we want to be heard." When Mai awoke, she rushed to share her dream with Bao and their friends. They had to reach out to the spirits, to understand their plight. As they gathered under a large banyan tree on the school grounds, they prepared an offering, a bouquet of flowers and a homemade banner that read, "We remember you." As they placed their offerings on the ground, the night air thickened. Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped through the branches. The atmosphere grew tense, and the children felt the presence of unseen forces surrounding them. They could hear the soft notes of a haunting melody rising around them, a song of remembrance sung by the spirits of the fallen soldiers. In that moment, the air shimmered, and the spirits revealed themselves more clearly than ever. There were more than just figures, they were emotions and stories, tales of bravery, loss, and an enduring connection to the land. The soldiers expressed their regrets about being forgotten. "We fought for this land," one spirit, resembling Hui, spoke, "and now it feels as though we are the ones who have been abandoned." With this newfound understanding, the group decided they needed to find a way to honor them. They organized a ceremony, inviting the town to participate in a night of remembrance. At the ceremony, the villagers lit candles, shared stories of courage, and recited poetry about those who fought during the war. As the voices of the living intertwined with the whispers of the dead, the atmosphere shifted once again. A palpable calm descended. The spirits, visibly recognized and honored, began to unite, their glows warm and inviting. They expressed their gratitude, no longer restless but comforted by the acknowledgement of their sacrifices. However, in the midst of joy and storytelling, a sudden chill interrupted the night. The air thickened, and the whispers turned to a warning. "But you must heed our words," the spirit of Hui reminded. This is our home, and you must not take it lightly. We fought through our own doubts and battles. Ensure that these grounds reflect our sacrifice." The villagers, now intimately aware of their history, felt a shift wash over the town. The school shifted from being merely a symbol of growth and learning to a place of remembrance. The students took it upon themselves to incorporate lessons of peace and respect into their studies, celebrating the bravery of their ancestors. Over time, Ngwin School transformed. The grounds became a sanctuary not only for students but also for the spirits. The children would often see the glowing figures, not as haunting shadows, but as guardians watching over them, ensuring that lessons learned would never be forgotten. The echoes of soldiers could still be felt, a gentle reminder that history is ever present, alive within the walls of their beloved school. And as new generations came and went, the legacy of those lost to war continued to flow within. Years passed, and the whispers faded into a gentle lull. The school became a celebrated institution, a reminder that endurance was born from remembering one's past. Bao and Mai, now grown, returned often to the grounds, sharing memories of their adventures with the new students. They held on to the belief that the spirits of the fallen soldiers would always watch over their beloved school. With time, the town transformed the vineyard into an annual festival of remembrance, filled with laughter, stories, and songs, creating a unique tapestry of culture and courage. At the heart of it all was Hui, and others like him, finally at peace with the knowledge that they were remembered and cherished, not just as soldiers, but as loved ones who gave everything to protect their home. And so, the tale of the haunted school carried forward through generations. Students learned that every footprint inside the classroom had a story, and every shadow cast by the old banyan tree was a reminder of bravery and loyalty. The spirits became a part of history, woven into the very fabric of the school itself. Ngwin School stood not just as an institution of learning, but as a beacon of unity, reflecting the harmony between the past and present, a living testament to the sacrifices made and a promise that those tales would repeat as long as hearts beat in remembrance. The living, forever intertwined, cherished the whispers of those who had come before, ensuring that they were not forgotten but embraced and honored with every passing day. Whispers of the Forsaken Plantation. In the heart of New Orleans, where the air was thick with the scent of magnolias and mystery, 5 curious souls gathered one warm, sultry evening. A group of young men and women, Alex, Bella, Chris, Dana, and Ethan, had heard whispers of a forsaken plantation village just outside the city limits. Legend had it that this place, known as La Maison des Esprits, claimed the status of the most haunted location in Louisiana. Eager for a thrill, they set out to unearth the truths cloaked in shadows and secrets. As they drove deeper into the bayou, the trees closed in around them, branches twisting like the gnarled fingers of an ancient witch. The setting sun draped the landscape in golden hues, but soon those colors faded into eerie, ghostly twilight. The road narrowed until it was little more than a dirt path, flanked by tall grasses that swayed as if they held their breath, whispering secrets of their own. "Are you sure we're heading in the right direction?" Chris joked, glancing nervously at Bella, who sat in the passenger seat scrolling through her phone. "Right here. It says we're almost there," Bella replied, a slight tremor in her voice as she brushed a strand of hair behind her ear. The weight of anticipation hung in the air. Suddenly, they emerged into a clearing, and there it stood, La Maison des Esprits, a decaying relic of a lost era. The plantation house loomed ominously above them, its white exterior peeling away to reveal the dusty bones of the structure hidden below. Nearby, crumbling slave quarters stood like mournful sentinels, and the overgrown gardens whispered of beauty now lost to time. As they stepped out of the car, a shiver raced down Alex's spine, sending a chill through the humid air. "We should split up and check out the surroundings," he suggested. The idea was met with mixed excitement and trepidation. "Are you kidding? It's haunted. Let's stick together," Dana warned, clutching Chris's arm nervously. "Come on, what's the worst that could happen?" Ethan laughed, though he couldn't shake the feeling of eyes watching from the shadows. Ignoring Dana's protests, they divided into two groups. Alex and Bella ventured toward the main house, while Chris, Dana, and Ethan approached the slave quarters. The air grew heavy with anticipation as they moved cautiously, the crunch of twigs underfoot breaking the profound silence. As Alex and Bella stepped onto the creaking porch of La Maison d'Esprits, an overwhelming sense of dread enveloped them. The front door, rotten and peeling, creaked open as if beckoning them inside. Taking a deep breath, they stepped over the threshold. Inside, the air was stale, infused with the smell of mildew and decay. Dust motes danced in the beams of moonlight pouring through broken windows. "Do you feel that?" Bella whispered, her voice barely audible in the oppressive darkness. "It's like something's alive here." Suddenly, a low moan echoed through the halls, making their hearts race. Alex squeezed Bella's hand, a mix of fear and exhilaration coursing through him. "Let's check the upstairs," he suggested, his curiosity overcoming his fear. As they ascended the rickety staircase, the temperature dropped noticeably. A heavy silence filled the air, a feeling of being watched pressed down upon them. They stepped into a bedroom, where antique furniture sat shrouded in white sheets, figures of deathly stillness. Bella moved to a dust-covered mirror, peering into its depths. "What if we see something?" she mused, half excited, half terrified. Alex chuckled nervously, stepping closer to her when suddenly, the mirror darkened, and a pale, ghostly figure flickered into view behind them, a woman in a flowing white dress with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through time itself. Bella gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. "Did you see that?" she screamed, spinning around, but the apparition was gone. Alex, feeling the weight of reality shift uncomfortably, quickly pulled her back. Meanwhile, in the slave quarters, Chris, Dana, and Ethan found themselves entranced by the stories the walls begged to tell. The air thickened as they explored, shadows playing tricks on their minds. Chris brushed his fingers along the rough walls, whispering the names of those who had lived and died within these walls, a futile attempt to honor the souls lost to torment. Suddenly, Dana felt a cold breeze brushing past her, like frigid fingertips running across her arm. "Did you feel that?" she trembled, glancing over her shoulder into the deep, dark corners of the room. Ethan approached her, trying to dismiss her fear with bravado, but even he felt the unsettling chill. "Let's keep going," he encouraged, pushing them further into the heart of the quarters, where a small chamber lay at the end of a narrow hallway. As they neared, the door creaked open slowly as though inviting them inside. Hesitantly, they stepped into the dim light, and the temperature plummeted dramatically. In the center of the room stood an old rocking chair, its wood splintered and worn. The chair began to rock back and forth of its own volition, a gentle rhythm that imitated the lullabies once sung to the children who were lost here. Chris's heart raced as he whispered, "This isn't right." Suddenly, mournful wails filled the air, echoing through the quarters. The sound was chilling, an anguished cry of sorrow that seemed to seep from the very walls. Dana covered her ears, screaming, "We need to get out of here." As they stumbled backward, the atmosphere thickened, pressing down on them. Dark shadows writhed in the corners, their forms coalescing into the images of tortured souls trapped in an eternal cycle of despair. Fleeing the room, they raced back through the hallway, each heartbeat pulsing in time with the dreadful sound surrounding them. Back at La Maison des Esprits, Alex and Bella were frozen in place, still mesmerized by the ghostly figure that lingered in the reflections of the mirror. Her mournful gaze locked on them, an unearthly sadness radiating from her spirit. "Who are you?" Bella stammered, her voice barely audible. The figure flickered, her form shimmering like ripples in a pond. In a voice like the rustling of dry leaves, she whispered, "Release me." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. "Release you? How?" he managed to ask, but the spirit merely pointed towards a tarnished locket resting on the dusty surface of a nearby dresser. Desperate to understand, Bella reached out for the locket, her fingers trembling. The moment she touched it, a wave of memories surged through her, a torrent of pain, loss, and unfulfilled longing. She saw flashes of the plantation's history, scenes of love and tragedy unfolding before her, slaves working under the brutal sun, a woman in white crying for a lost child, betrayal woven into the fabric of the house. "Alex!" Bella shouted, pulling him close. "She wants us to free her." Outside, Dana, Chris, and Ethan were racing towards the main house when they heard Bella's voice echoing through the night air. They rushed in, hearts pounding with both terror and urgency. "Help us!" Bella cried, desperation flooding her voice. Together, they felt the weight of the collective anguish suffocating the air around them. They regrouped and formed a circle around the ghostly locket. In unison, they chanted, "We release you from your pain, we set you free," their voices trembling, yet unwavering. As they spoke, the ghostly figure began to swirl around them, her form becoming more defined, glowing with an ethereal light that filled the room. A profound stillness enveloped them as the walls seemed to dim. The mournful wails transformed into a sweet, serene melody, a lullaby of peace that soothed the heavy hearts of those present. In a final explosive flash of light, the spirit brightened beyond human perception, then faded away, leaving only a soft, gentle warmth in her wake. The anguish that had seeped into the very walls of La Maison des Esprits seemed to lift, replaced by a tranquil silence that felt almost sacred. The young men and women stood together, breathless and wide-eyed. They had witnessed something unspeakably extraordinary and terrifying, a release born from connection and empathy. As they left the plantation behind, the stars twinkled overhead, their light bright against the canvas of night. The group shared a new understanding, a bond forged in the face of fear and the resolve to honor the stories of those lost. They knew that they would carry the echoes of La Maison des Esprits with them forever, a reminder of the past and a testament to the otherworldly connections that lie just beyond the veil of human experience. Though they drove back to the bustling warmth of New Orleans, the shadows of the plantation village loomed in their minds, a haunting that would forever shape their souls. And as the night deepened, the ghostly figure of the woman in white danced among the stars, finally free at last. The Haunting of Cedar Hollow. It was a sweltering summer vacation when Ethan and his sister, Mia, embarked on an adventure to Cedar Hollow. Their parents decided to visit their old family home to see their grandparents, and the siblings couldn't contain their excitement. With school letting out for over a month, Ethan had resolved to stay at his grandparents' for a full 30 days, relishing the chance to reconnect with his childhood pals from the sleepy town. As their car approached the familiar rusty iron gate, a wave of nostalgia swept over Ethan. Beyond the gate stood a charming 3-story white house, its garden lush and vibrant, filled with blooming flowers that swayed gently in the summer breeze. Suddenly, a flurry of honking erupted as their vehicle drew nearer, followed by the creaking of the gate. An elderly man, wrinkled yet sprightly at around 75, with a tangle of black and gray hair, stepped out to greet them, a mixture of joy and age etched across his face. "Is that you, my little darlings?" he shouted, waving enthusiastically. Parked out front was a pristine white Toyota minivan, and alongside it stood Ethan's uncle, William, and his wife, Sarah, excitedly waiting for their arrival. They commandeered the car doors, cheering as Ethan and Mia hopped out. "Grandfather Robert, ever the jokester," exclaimed William. "Sarah, my darlings are here." Amid laughter, Ethan spotted his grandma, Barbara, coming out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. She welcomed them with open arms. "This summer, you two must stay longer. We missed you so much," she said, hugging them tightly. "So glad to be back, Grandma," Ethan replied, beaming. As the chatter filled the air, Ethan felt a creeping sensation running down his spine, although he barely paid it any mind at the moment. Days passed, the summer sun drenched Cedar Hollow in golden rays, and Ethan found himself reuniting with his childhood friends, Jake, Ben, and Oliver. They roamed the meadows, explored the nearby woods, and launched kites that danced against the sky. However, when shadows grew long and twilight deepened, an unsettling air enveloped Cedar Hollow. One evening, as draped in warm orange hues, Ethan decided to join his friends near the old oak tree past the shack at the outskirts of his grandparents' land, a place laden with local legends. Tales often spoke of spirits that roamed the woods after dark, searching for lost souls from long ago. His friends dared him to venture deeper into the thicket surrounding the tree when the moon began to rise. Overcome with a sense of boisterous defiance, Ethan accepted. "Don't go too far into the woods," Jake warned with a half-hearted grin, their laughter fading as Ethan stepped into the shadows. He could hear the whispers of the forest, a symphony of wind sneaking between tall grass and trees, as if the woods were beckoning him closer. That night, after a day filled with exhilarating outdoor antics, Ethan lay in bed unable to shake an uneasy feeling. He tossed and turned, his dreams filled with disjointed images of fog-draped woods, echoing whispers, and fleeting shadows. He awoke to a chilling resignation, a soft voice calling his name, as if it were something tangible yet just beyond his reach. "Ethan, come find me." He thought it was merely a dream, but as days passed, the voice lingered, often growing louder. Mia began noticing her brother's strained demeanor and tuned into his troubling sleep patterns. Concerned for him, she one night insisted that he not go wandering alone anymore. But curiosity gnawed at Ethan, and with Mia's concerns echoing in his ears, he found himself drawn toward the woods once again. On an especially eerie night, when the moon hung low and heavy in the sky, Ethan managed to slip away. He followed the whispers which seemed to guide him through the dark, twisting paths of the forest where reality felt thin. The shadows grew longer, and a cold, damp mist rolled in, wrapping around him like a shroud. "Remember our promise," the voice sang softly, hauntingly. Suddenly, he stumbled upon a clearing where an ancient, gnarled tree stood, its branches reaching skyward. At its base lay a stone marker partially buried in leaves and rot. He knelt to reveal the inscription, his heart racing. "Here lies the lost spirit of Clara, forever seeking what was taken." As he read the name aloud, a frigid wind swept through the clearing, branches rustled ominously, and he felt a presence loom, towering darkly behind him. Ethan turned around to see figures emerging from the shadows, many souls, eyes full of sadness and longing, converging toward him. "Help us," they mourned in unison, their voices overlapping and intertwining like an echoing melody. Suddenly, Ethan's body went numb, and the terrain beneath him shifted, a ghostly chilling aura engulfing him. The lost spirits reached out, fingers brushing against his skin, threatening to pull him into their eternal despair. Ethan stumbled backward, now desperate to escape. The shadows in the forest coalesced, twisting and warping around him as he darted away. He could hear Mia's name whispered among the wails of lost souls as he ran, urging him to find his way back. The mere thought of his sister made his heart race. Bursting from the thicket, he made it back to the house, breathless and terrified. Tremors coursed through his body as he slammed the door behind him. "Ethan! What happened?" Mia exclaimed, her eyes wide with concern. He could only whisper of the haunting experience, the enigmatic Clara, and the ghosts who sought his help. But as he spoke, a chill enveloped the room as night deepened outside, shadows dancing along the walls. "Something is very wrong in Cedar Hollow," Mia declared, determination coursing through her veins. The siblings hatched a plan to uncover Clara's story, convinced she was the key to the spirit's unrest. The duo ventured into the town archives the following day, piecing together fragments of Clara's life. They discovered she was an innocent girl who had vanished mysteriously decades ago, with rumors that she would roam the woods looking for a brother she had lost. Unable to find peace, her spirit remained tethered to Cedar Hollow. The siblings learned that a storm was brewing that night, a storm that, according to legend, would summon the spirits of the lost, a chance to help Clara find closure. As evening fell and the winds howled ominously, Ethan and Mia prepared for their confrontation. They returned to the ancient tree, thrumming with residual energy. Together, they recited a passage from an old journal they uncovered, a summoning meant to bring forth the lost souls. The ground trembled as mist gathered, and Clara's spirit emerged, amidst swirls of light and darkness, confusion etching her face. "You found me," she breathed, but the anguish lingered as she looked into Ethan's eyes. "Help us," the scattered spirits implored, their sorrowful tones chilling the air. Ethan, now anchored by Mia's strength, stepped forward. "We will find your brother, Clara. You need to tell us how." "I gave him everything," she replied cryptically, "yet I lost myself in the process." Through the storm, the truth unraveled as Clara shared her tragic fate, a sacrifice born from love that inadvertently bound her spirit to Cedar Hollow. In a moment of courage, Ethan offered, "I'll become the anchor you need. Set them free." With conviction, he extended his hands, a light emanating from their clasp, connecting him with the encroaching spirits. The air grew electric, and the storm roared, weaving confusion and chaos, bridging the two worlds for one last time. In a blinding flash, Ethan felt the weight of Clara's longing spirits lift, melding with his essence and filling him with an iridescent light, a warmth unfurling grief and sorrow throughout Cedar Hollow. As dawn broke over the town, the storm subsided, the remnants of Clara's spirit fading into blissful tranquility. Ethan awoke lying beneath the old oak, alive yet forever changed. Mia rushed toward him, eyes wide and brimming with hope. "Ethan, you did it. The town feels different, lighter," she said, staring around as Cedar Hollow began to breathe anew. The ghosts now released, their whispers transformed into grateful sighs dancing through the breeze. Together, the siblings returned to their grandparents' home for the last time that summer, their hearts full. Cedar Hollow was healing, and so were its people. Stories of bravery, love, and sacrifice would blend seamlessly through the bays and whisper among the trees. As they departed, Ethan glanced back at the ancient tree bathed in sunlight, a symbol now more profound than ever. He knew the tales of Cedar Hollow would continue to echo through time, the whispers of lost souls, now explained through the bonds unbroken, and tales of unity conquering despair. And so, dear viewer, while you relax beneath the stars tonight, remember that light can overcome darkness, and even the hardest hearts can understand the call of lost souls. Cedar Hollow's spirit lingers in every story shared, waiting for the next brave heart to answer its call. The Haunting of Eldersworth Manor. Once upon a time in a desolate town known as Eldersworth, a young woman named Davina found herself ensnared in a web of shadows and whispers. Davina was obliviously naive, believing that once she entered the looming Eldersworth Manor, the ill-famed residence of the town's matriarch, Lady Maud, she would be free from the judgment of the superstitious townsfolk. Yet, in her heart, she knew the haunting tales could not be dismissed so lightly. One late evening, as darkness swallowed the town, Davina prepared to venture to the ghostly market known for its ethereal trades. Her friend Iris, a tender-hearted companion, noticed Davina's pallid complexion and opted to comfort her, saying, "It's mere gossip, dear friend. They say eerie things to lure the curious and sell their wares at the market." "Thank you, Iris," Davina replied, though her heart trembled with the weight of dread. "Now, let's fetch you some food," Iris declared, leading Davina through the dimly lit hallways of the manor to the kitchen, where shadows danced ominously against the walls. As they walked, eerie murmurs echoed around them, rumors that pervaded Eldersworth about ghosts lingering within the walls, haunting the living for their misdeeds. Soon, the clock struck the ghostly hour. Shadow-clad figures approached the manor's threshold, ready to descend into the depths of the market that only opened on moonless nights. At precisely 9, Davina set off, her heart racing with anxiety. Before leaving, a servant known as Vesper handed her a flickering lantern, a pouch of silver coins, and an unsettling warning. "Lady Maud has decreed that should you fail to gather enough trinkets, you'll endure the consequences. There's no escape if you dare to stray from the path." "I understand," Davina gasped, clutching the lantern tightly, fear gripping her throat. Vesper added, "Follow the northern path, cross the Black River, and venture through the Whispering Woods." With trepidation, Davina paced along the narrow path, the chilling night air enveloping her. Half an hour later, she arrived at the Black River, its waters blacker than the void, swirling rapidly without a bridge in sight. Just as despair settled over her, an old boatman appeared from the shadows, his weathered face a map of suffering and secrets. "Need a ride, young lady?" he croaked, his voice echoing with the whispers of the dead. "Yes, please," Davina replied, relieved. As she climbed aboard the fragile vessel, a sudden chill coursed down her spine. The old man steered the boat silently, navigating through the dark waters, as Davina shivered despite the layers of clothing she wore. "It's mighty cold tonight, lass," he muttered, glancing at the depths below. "Beware of the creatures beneath." Davina's curiosity piqued, but she remembered the warning. Just as she was about to peer into the murky water, the old man shouted, "Don't you dare! They're not kind like you think." Panic washed over her. In the depths, Ghostly fish with eyes like hollow black holes began to circle, attracted by her presence. It was then that the old man took out a pouch of crimson meat, tossing it into the water. The fish ceased their ominous circling, momentarily appeased. "That's no ordinary river," he explained, his voice laden with gravity. "Long ago, it claimed the souls of countless invaders, their spirits entwined with the fish, condemning them to haunt this water forever. You must offer something of value to pass unharmed." Davina felt her stomach twist at the thought of what that meat could be. Before she could voice a question, the old man continued, "And for you, my dear, silver is of no worth here." Her heart hammered. "What about this?" she said, producing the ghostly coins meant for the market. "Good enough. But remember, offerings must be made or you'll find yourself joining them below." He tossed the coins into the river, watching them sink into the abyss. As they neared the other shore, the old man advised, "Once you enter the Whispering Woods, keep your bearing straight. Do not respond to the voices that call for you. Scatter additional offerings every 10 paces. The spirits are hungry." "Thank you," Davina whispered, terrified yet determined. Grateful to have escaped the haunted river, she took her first steps into the woods. The air grew thick with fog as she progressed through the trees, darkness tightening around her like a shroud. With each 10 paces, she dropped a few shimmering coins, as instructed. Yet, the further she went, the more her senses were assaulted by echoing cries, whispers of children lamenting, the faint rustle of branches that felt like fingers brushing against her skin. Davina pressed on, her heart racing, each step unbearable as shadows danced in her peripheral vision. The cries grew louder, the atmosphere heavy with sorrow. "Help us," the voices beckoned, pulling at her very essence. But she remembered the old man's warning and resolutely kept her eyes forward, fear clawing at her heart. Finally breaking free from the sinister grasp of the woods, Davina stumbled upon the eerie market, a spectral assembly bustling with the deceased. Wisps of ghostly figures floated from stall to stall, exchanging haunted relics beneath a starless sky. Here, Davina was but a flicker amidst the storm of spirits. Among the crowd, figures with hollow eyes and sunken cheeks gazed longingly at her, reaching out with phantom fingers. Behind one stall, a merchant, pale as death itself, beckoned her. "Come, dear girl, what do you seek? Perhaps a relic to remember your journey? Or a charm to ward off the malevolent?" Davina, paralyzed with fear, hesitated. The evil energy pulsed through her body, drawing her closer to the stalls that contained suffering and despair. I need to return home safely," she stammered, clutching the remnants of her silver offerings. The merchant's smile revealed sharp teeth. "Ah, but remember, child, safety comes at a cost, for all things in Eldersworth demand a soul." The market pulsed with anticipation as the specters advanced, eager to claim their prize. Davina felt herself teeter on the brink of hopelessness until a memory sparked within her, her mother's voice, strong and loving, warning her against despair. Summoning her courage, Davina yelled, "No! I refuse to be a victim. I hold my fate in my hands." In an act of defiance, she scattered all her remaining coins on the ground, allowing them to shine like stars amidst shadows. The spirits recoiled, their faces contorting in rage and fear, their dance halted. Clenching her fists, she dashed past the stalls, through the mall of phantoms, heedless of the screams and wails that erupted in her wake. Davina sprinted blindly toward the edge of the market, praying desperately to escape the eternal grasp of Eldersworth. As she neared the boundary, the shadows lunged toward her, desperate to reclaim what she had denied them. With the final ounce of her strength, she leaped through the shimmer of the veil separating the realm of the living from the dead. Breathless and alive, Davina collapsed onto the forest floor, the dawn's light breaking over the horizon. The spirit's cries faded behind her as the morning sun pierced the clouds. She vowed to share her chilling tale, warning others about the haunted market of Eldersworth, a place where souls intertwined with darkness, forever echoing the price of curiosity. And there she stood, a survivor, forever marked by her encounter with the phantoms of Eldersworth, her heart aching with the weight of memories best left unexamined. From that night on, she realized, as the townsfolk shared the haunting whispers of Eldersworth, it would never truly be free of the relentless shadows that lingered in the deep, dark corners of their collective memory, reminding them that some markets are best left undisturbed. The Haunted Moon Festival. The night painted the bleak landscape of Greystone Hollow in a deep, ominous black. Locals whispered of its eerie history, and tonight, the village was more desolate than ever. The swirling shadows danced as the wind howled through the empty streets, sending chills down the spines of any brave enough to hear. It was the night of the Haunted Moon Festival, and yet, there wasn't the slightest shimmer of light. The sky hung heavily with thick clouds, brooding in silence. As custom dictated, the villagers hurried home before dusk descended fully, ensuring their doors were locked tight, the lights extinguished. The ethos of the hollow was simple: respect the spirits or suffer their wrath. Candles and incense burned in veritable ceremonies as offerings to the spirits who lingered among the gravestones. Bang! Boom, boom. By midnight, thunder erupted overhead, illuminating the world with streaks of lightning. The once hidden flora was suddenly laid bare, shivering as the storm unleashed its fury. Amidst this, the path leading towards the graveyard, that unwelcome anomaly of Greystone Hollow, was quickly turning into a treacherous quagmire. 3 figures trudged through the muck, their silhouettes barely discernible in the wild storm. Clad in tattered rain gear and straining under the weight of cumbersome equipment, they approached the crumbling edifice of the old abandoned manor, rumored to be cursed. The leader, a grizzled man named Thaddeus, was known for his reckless pursuit of the supernatural. Damn it all. Do you even check the weather forecast, Derek? You picked the most cursed night of the year to do this, he cursed, his voice barely audible over the racket of the storm. Behind him was a younger man, Derek, who had a glimmer of ambition in his eyes. Don't worry, Thaddeus. This will be perfect. The villagers say she wanders these grounds looking for revenge. Just imagine the photos, he said, shivering half from fear, half from the cold. Beside him, Lucas, the third companion, muttered, I just hope we can pull this off without angering whatever lurks in there. His voice trembled, but he didn't want to show weakness in front of the 2 more seasoned explorers. Despite his skeptical nature, fear coursed through Thaddeus at the thought of capturing something spectral on film. The internet buzzed with reports of photographers who had uncovered chilling evidence of the supernatural. But this night had a chilling atmosphere thicker than the rain-soaked ground they trod upon. The manor loomed ahead, a shadowy giant seemingly ready to swallow them whole. At last, the trio reached the manor. Its weathered stones groaned under the layers of moss and vine, tales of sorrow draping over it like a shroud. Legend spoke of Alara, a tormented spirit who had once lived here, lost to madness after a betrayal. The townsfolk claimed she was restless, still searching for the one who wronged her. Thaddeus led the charge, forcing the heavy door open with a reluctant creak. Inside, the air was stale, infused with a chilling draft that sent tremors down their spines. Shadows played tricks with their minds, making them question if they were alone in this dreadful place. Keep close, Thaddeus commanded, already fumbling with his camera as he struggled to capture the foreboding atmosphere. Remember, we need to remain calm. Stay alert for signs. As they navigated through the debris of the manor, Pages of torn books fluttered like spectral wings, and the portraits adorning the walls seemed to shift with their gaze. Derek swung his flashlight, illuminating the faces that had seen a time long gone, while Lucas felt the oppressive weight of something unseen closing in around him. Goosebumps prickled his skin. After an hour of exploration, finding little aside from cold drafts and an unsettling atmosphere, Lucas stumbled upon a dusty journal, its covers faded and nearly disintegrating. "Guys, check this out," he called out, barely containing his shock. "Another myth?" Thaddeus grumbled, his excitement waning. But the moment Lucas read aloud the tragic tale of Alara, their skepticism began to falter. Descriptions of dark rituals, a haunting rage, and the paranoia of betrayal echoed through the manor. Suddenly, a deafening crash shattered the fragile tension in the air. It drew them into a darkened hallway, where the temperature plummeted and shadows flickered like candle flames. The sound came from the very room Alara had occupied before her disappearance, where the air grew thicker, almost sentient with despair. "Let's check it out," Derek whispered, his curiosity overtaking his fear and connecting their hearts with a trepidation they did not understand. As they entered, the room dimmed further, and Derek felt a cold hand brush against his neck. He turned sharply, but nothing was there. Just an empty room, except for the noose that swung gently from the chandelier, an unholy reminder of Alara's tragic end. "No, this isn't right, we should go," Lucas's voice quivered, his eyes wide as he stumbled back. "Don't be a coward. We came here to document the supernatural," Thaddeus snapped, pushing forth. But just as he raised his camera to snap a photo, all lights flickered out, plunging them into darkness. In the cloying blackness, the frigid air was pierced with whispers innamed by the wind. Voices which seemed to sigh and beckon them forward, haunted murmurs growing inexplicably louder. Panic seized them. They stumbled, bumping against the walls, searching for an escape as shadows coiled around them. "We have to leave now," Derek screamed. But it was too late. The whispers transformed into anguished wails, echoing their despair through the creaking floorboards. Thaddeus swung his flashlight around, illuminating sights that would haunt them forever, spectral figures drifting in and out of view, eyes wide with sorrow, trapped in an endless loop of their own torment. "Run!" Thaddeus shouted, and they bolted from the cursed chamber, desperately retreating toward the entrance. But the manor seemed alive, closing in around them, the walls shifting as if they were a labyrinth conspiring against them. In the chaos, they lost each other in the labyrinthine corridors. Derek found himself in a small parlor, the fireplace adorned with charred relics of what once might have been love and warmth. Suddenly, Alara appeared before him, her figure cloaked in shimmering white. "Haven't you seen enough?" she whispered, her voice a chilling wisp of fog. "You trespass on hollow ground. Return what was stolen or face the curse of my despair." Meanwhile, Lucas had joined forces with Thaddeus, hearts hammering in fear. "We need to help Derek," he said, panic-stricken. But as they turned back toward the room, the way was lost, the house had transformed, creating a new path altogether. They found themselves trapped in what felt like an endless nightmare, an echo of their own fears where time lost its meaning. With shadows enveloping them, Thaddeus realized their only hope lay in understanding Alara's story. "Wait! We didn't come to harm you. We're just trying to help," he shouted into the darkness, feeling brave but knowing they were still far from safe. "Tell us how we can ease your suffering." Alara's lament filled the room as she appeared again, her ethereal presence glowing softly. "There is no salvation for me, but my sacrifice may bring clarity to others," she murmured, tears shimmering like crystals under the flickering shadows. "The truth must be uncovered. My love betrayed me, and in my rage, I cursed this place." Thaddeus, recognizing the depth of her sorrow, whispered urgently, "We will expose the truth. We promise you that." The words hung in the air, heavy with solemnity. As if sensing their sincerity, Elara pointed towards an ornate box hidden beneath the floorboards, crumbling yet filled with forgotten secrets. "Release me, and the hollow will be freed from its chains." With a surge of valor, Thaddeus and Lucas moved forward, prying the box open, revealing an ancient locket containing the truth of Elara's past, their darkest secret, an unfulfilled promise that had damned many. In that moment, the shadows faded, the weight of grief lifting as the truth spilled forth like a song, wrapping around them. Elara's anguished spirit dissipated, leaving behind a warmth that was once lost to despair. As the dawn broke, the manor breathed a sigh of relief, gently illuminated by a soft golden light. Thaddeus and Lucas found the courage to return to the village, where they shared their harrowing tale, restoring her story, finally giving Elara the voice she had long been denied. Greystone Hollow began to heal, the memories of Elara transformed into whispers of a warning. And as for Thaddeus and his team, their names became etched into the folklore as they uncovered the truth, forever marked by their haunting encounter and the bonds they forged in darkness. Their harrowing adventure may have been terrifying, filled with phantoms and shadows, but in its wake, it left an enduring lesson, that every story seeks a teller, and sometimes the scariest tales are those that remain untold. As a slight chill grazed the necks of those passing the manor, they would sometimes hear soft whispers on the wind, a reminder of the past, a testament of love, and the importance of acknowledging the spirits that linger still, yearning for liberation. And at times, when the storm rolled in, the skies darkened, they too might feel the electric thrill of haunted shadows, reminding them that not all stories end in despair, some find peace in being heard. Shadows of Eldridge Park. In the quaint but sinister town of Eldridge Hollow, where the fog rolled in like a spectral tide, life had a rhythmic cadence. Retired and unburdened by the rush of work, Samuel found himself lost in the labyrinth of his newfound leisure. Each day, he donned his faded sneakers and stepped out into the ethereal embrace of dawn, embarking on his daily ritual of walking. In winter, he strode through the desolate streets of Eldridge Hollow from 7 to 9 a.m. In summer, he awoke at the ghostly hour of 5 a.m. to roam the forsaken grounds until the sun bled into the horizon. But the purpose of his excursion was more than mere fitness. It was an escape from the mundanity of retirement into a space where the worries of life faded into the background. With his modest home a mere 400 meters from the cursed Eldridge Park, the convenience of his routines masked a chilling truth. This park, sprawling across over 20 acres, built with an excess of funding that seemed almost cursed at ghostly 1,000 billion, was shrouded in an aura of death and despair. Designed with an ominous nod to the spirits of the departed, it housed a cemetery for the town's political elite, resting places shadowed by towering oaks and twisted vines. From the aerial view, the cemetery appeared as a dark stain on the landscape, encircled by stagnant ponds that bubbled with secrets long buried. Behind the cemetery loomed the district's funeral home, where mournful dirges echoed daily, puncturing the stillness with melancholy. There lay a disquieting narrative whispered among the townsfolk. Certain days were deemed inauspicious for funerals, tales spoken in hushed tones by flower vendors who spoke of curses tumbling from the lips of the dead. In the architectural plans of Eldridge Park, the architects indulged in the esoteric study of feng shui, creating a space not merely for leisure but ostensibly to appease the restless spirits. Locals joked about the park as a haven for wandering souls, a spectral battleground between the vibrant lives of the living and the relentless hauntings of the deceased. The whispers of the living mingled with the moans of the dead, creating an unsettling symphony that played throughout Eldridge Hollow. The park, once a promising venture for the community, had descended into neglect. The city's mayor had been embroiled in scandal, disappearing into the shadows of legal troubles, leaving the park to rot. Over time, nature reclaimed its territory, with weeds swarming over benches like grasping hands, and once welcoming trails were shrouded in darkness, inviting only the desperate souls seeking refuge from their own demons. Despite its haunted nature, Samuel and a few elder residents clung to the park, using its eerie charm during their evening wanderings. Each day, Samuel would walk around the largest of the park's pond, completing about ghostly 9 laps within an hour. But one fateful day, ominous clouds rolled in swiftly, shrouding the sun and casting deep shadows over Eldridge Hollow. As the rain began to fall, the delicate trills of cheerful birds transformed into distant echoes of despair. Samuel sought solace in a decrepit octagonal shelter near the funeral home, hoping to dodge the downpour while pausing his routine. Nearby, a young man named Sam, perpetually engulfed in an obsession of fishing, sheltered beneath a worn raincoat that looked as faded as his spirit. Samuel had known Sam from his regular appearances by the pond, although they had never shared more than fleeting glances. However, today's unease was palpable, and as Samuel focused on the movements of his arms and legs, he was startled by Sam's panicked shout, interrupting the meditation of his exercises. Without a moment's hesitation, Sam hurled his fishing rod into the murky waters, tossed aside his shoes, and vaulted over the iron fence that bordered the pond, his frantic cries echoing off the walls of Eldridge Park. Samuel watched, bewildered and frightened, as Sam sprinted away, fear etched across his face, never once looking back. Glancing down at the pond where Sam had cast, he peered into the depths. He could see black waters roiling ominously, bubbling violently as if something beneath stirred. Then all at once, silence reclaimed the pond, its surface once again still and sinister. Hushed cries from the funeral home penetrated the air, the mournful sounds snaking through the trees. Samuel continued his luminal exercises, the rain easing outside. But the unease rooted itself in his heart, the image of Sam's pale face carved into his memory. When the rain ultimately ceased, Samuel decided to forego his remaining laps, retreating home instead. Weeks rolled by, each day bleeding into the next until he found himself seated at an aged cafe nestled in the heart of Eldridge Hollow. Sipping his coffee, a familiar face approached him, echoing greetings from the past. It was Sam, his features drawn tight, shadows lurking beneath his eyes. Samuel managed a smile, memories of the terrified young man flooding back. "Mr. Samuel, do you recognize me?" Sam asked, his voice trembling. "Of course, you're the fisherman from the park. What happened that day you ran away?" Sam swallowed hard, eyes darting, and insisted, "I experienced something that day. I believe I encountered a ghost." As he recounted the horror, a chill slithered down Samuel's spine. Sam described how he had been fishing under a thick haze of rain when the buoy sank suddenly, and he felt a force tugging at his line. Believing it to be a large fish, he had tightened his grip and reeled with all his strength, only to be greeted by a horrible sight. Emerging from the black waters was a hand, emaciated and frail, its skin a ghastly contrast of dark and pale, fingers long and gnarled with sharp, curling nails that scraped the surface. Sam's voice cracked as he spoke of the grotesque laughter, an unsettling, bubbling sound that echoed in his ears, a hollowness that consumed him whole. In his terror, he had fled, abandoning his rod and shoes. The thought of returning to retrieve them sent shivers through him, a thought that echoed in his mind, gnashing at the walls of sanity. "You were gone before I could call for you," Sam lamented. "I've not fished since that day." Samuel listened, terror gripping him as Sam's fear dripped into the shadows of Eldridge Park, transforming it from merely spooky to something far more malevolent. In the subsequent days, Samuel found himself unable to escape the weight of dread that weighed upon him like a shroud. As twilight deepened, he began avoiding the park altogether, walking instead around the outskirts of his little hollow. But always, the whispers of the dead and the remnants of Sam's tale clung to him like the fog, haunted by the invisible eyes that watched from the depths of Eldridge Park. Yet, the more he avoided it, the more its sinister pull grew stronger. The townsfolk had their stories, tales of nightmarish fishermen, gnarled hands dragging victims beneath the waters, laughter echoing through the park, persistent as the fog. There were rumors of souls trapped in the depths, unable to break free. Frisked with unease, he felt an irresistible urge to confront his fears. One dreary evening, armed with little more than a flickering flashlight, he stepped toward the park once more, determined to seek answers amidst the shadows. With each tentative step, the park opened like a great maw, swallowing the light and amplifying the rustling whispers of unseen specters. As he approached the pond, the familiar sense of dread clawed at him. The air was colder here, the shadows denser, as if the trees leaned in, conspiring against him. Each plop of water sent shivers dancing down his spine, and a chorus of laughter echoed in the silence. It sent echoes of his sanity skittering away. Samuel stared into the darkened waters, half expecting to see the ghostly figure reach up once more. And then, breaking the surface, he caught a fleeting glimpse of a gnarled hand, only this time, it lingered longer. Heart pounding, he turned to flee, the sound of his footsteps mixing with the symphony of laughter rising like a crescendo behind him. But the memories wouldn't let him, the tales bubbling within him like the dreadful waters of the pond. Days turned to weeks, and though he longed to escape the weight of Eldridge Hollow, the ghosts of his mind haunted him, snatching at the edges of his sanity, painting each night with shades of terror. Ultimately, the threads of fear did not lead him to liberation but deeper into hopelessness. Gripped by the need for the town's dark history, Samuel found that the souls of Eldridge Park would forever dwell in the corners of his consciousness, their whispers echoing through the mists of Eldridge Hollow, a warning for those who dare to tread too close to the shadows of the past. Samuel understood now. Eldridge Park was a realm where the line between the living and the dead frayed into nothingness, a place where darkness thrived, and every story told became a part of its haunting legacy, one that would echo among the living until the end of time. Little did he know, the spirits still lurked, waiting for the unwary to join them in their eternal entrapment beneath the ghostly waters of Eldridge Park. The Haunting of Cindermere Manor. In the cursed town of Cindermere, where unexplainable shadows meandered through the fog-laden streets and whispers of the damned danced through darkened alleyways, stood a foreboding manor that the townsfolk dared not approach. This was the domain of the illustrious Compton family, known for their wealth and, more ominously, their dark history. One stormy evening, a young girl named Eloan was led into the grand hall of the Compton estate by a trembling servant named Rena. Eloan, merely 13, had been chosen to serve the house and oversee the peculiar rituals surrounding its enigmatic residents. The matriarch, Lady Morrigan, sat regal and imposing at the center of the room. Although past her 50s, her vitality masked her age. Her eyes glinted like shards of ice, penetrating and filled with an inscrutable authority. "Liam, have you awakened your brother yet?" she commanded, her voice echoing ominously through the confines of the manor. "Yes, my lady," replied Liam, the servant, his voice barely above a whisper. But he remains unresponsive. As Liam spoke, a rustling sound disrupted the air, leading Eloan's eyes to a large, ornately carved pedestal that housed an elaborate silk draping. Straining her sight, she discerned a lurking figure shrouded in blood-red fabric, its limbs fluttering as if beckoning her forward. A jolt of shock coursed through Eloan as she stumbled backward, her heart pounding in her chest. "Ah, your brother has finally dressed for his wedding, my lady," Liam exclaimed, trying to mask his unease with forced cheerfulness. Lady Morrigan's demeanor softened slightly. It seems the boy takes to the bride quicker than anticipated. Rena, noticing Aloan's wide-eyed stare, leaned in with a hushed tone. Usually, your brother opts for white garments during the ceremonies. Today is a different affair. Lady Morrigan's approval is a good omen. Aloan exhaled softly, finding momentary solace in the prospect that perhaps her future serving the Compton family would be bearable. She couldn't help but reflect that it was better than the hellish reality with her mother, who forced her into unspeakable matches with desperate suitors, often taking advantage of other vulnerable young women. Time slips away, boy. Go to the altar with your bride before the hour strikes. Lady Morrigan commanded, her tone laced with urgency. As her order resonated, an unnatural gust of wind surged through the hall, billowing the entrance curtains, allowing a sinister, crudely made effigy to stumble into the room. It flitted around aimlessly, its paper form unsteady before finally landing on Aloan's shoulder. An icy breath whispered against her ear, chilling her to the core as she stood frozen in horror. Begin the ceremony, Lady Morrigan ordered, her patience wearing thin. Liam produced a bundle of incense, smoke curling and suffocating Aloan's senses. She gasped for air as the pungent aroma overwhelmed her. With a reedy voice, Liam recited ominous incantations, invoking the spirits of the deceased to bear witness to the grotesque union between Aloan and her reluctant groom. By the spirits of the underworld, on this, the 5th day of the dark moon, you and Compton, summon the ancestors and specters to witness this perverse bond, Liam declared, his voice trembling with dread. As Aloan stood entranced by the chaotic tension, a sudden warmth cascaded down her shoulder. Blood was trickling from her skin with no apparent source. Panic rose within her as she twisted to see, an unbearable realization dawning upon her. The empowers of the effigy had drawn something from her. Her blood. Rena screamed, her eyes wide as she pointed. It flows like... Before she could finish, a glint of a blade flashed through the dim lighting, and from the corner of the room, an ethereal figure emerged. It was the spirit of a long-forgotten bride, a reflection of countless souls lost to the ravenous legacy of the Compton house. The wails of the damned echoed eerily, clawing at Aloan's sanity as she doubled over, retching in horror at the realization. Every union demanded a sacrifice, and the blood of the innocent was their currency. Stop! Lady Morrigan roared, and in that instant, a dark shadow enveloped her, an echo of the past entwined with bloody expectations. Aloan felt a hot slap across her face as Lady Morrigan's grip yanked her closer, her eyes blazing with fury. You bring a curse into my house. With a horrified heart, Aloan tasted the truth. The vengeful spirits were real, and they yearned for retribution. The scion of the Compton family had descended into shadows, and the chilling facts were all around her. The blood on the ivory floor began to seep into the cracks, awakening the otherworldly entities that had been imprisoned beneath. No! We must rid ourselves of this taint. Lady Morrigan screeched. Chaos erupted, servants scrambled and shadows flickered. Aloan felt hands pulling her against the despair of impending doom. Her time has come, a raspy voice pierced through the tumult, the voice of the lost bride whispering promises of eternal suffering. And as Aloan surrendered to the growing dread, the specter consumed her consciousness. She was no longer merely a servant, but part of their hunting misery, a pawn in a never-ending game of despair. Rena's scream penetrated the clamor. Fetch the cleansing herbs. We must purify her. But the echoes of the dead grew louder, mocking her futile attempts to save Aloan from the bloodied legacy. One by one, the spirits loomed before her, ravaged and hollow-eyed, resigned to their fates. They thrummed in a wicked symphony, swirling around the bewildered girl as her breaths turned ragged and frantic. With each moment, Aloan became aware of the haunting truth of her situation. the manor itself craved more souls, an eternal feed for its insatiable greed. Her mother's warnings echoed ominously in her ears, a terrible reminder of the price to pay for intruding upon such haunted grounds. "Come witness the consummation of our despair," murmured the spirit of the bride, weaving in shadows and tendrils of pain. "Your blood is the key. You will join us." Eloan's screams were swallowed by the darkness as the weight of the past pressed down upon her, the air thickening with desperation. In a last-ditch effort, she envisioned freedom, cried out, but the thrum of spectral laughter stifled her voice, rising above the dark choir thrumming through the hall. In that moment, the veil of reality blurred, and the manor's intentions became clear. Cindermere Manor was not merely a place, it was a living entity, a voracious beast feeding on the souls of those who dared to step foot inside. As chaos erupted, the walls seemed to bleed, the ground trembled, and the door to eternity yawned open. Each room whispered secrets of past rites gone awry, of a cycle perpetually renewed, calling forth another innocent soul to bind to the Compton curse. And as the final echoes of laughter faded into nothingness, the town of Cindermere breathed once more, oblivious to the dark feast of souls within the manor's grasp. Eloan had become one with the house, her story echoing through the halls, a warning to those who would follow, to never trust the allure of a legacy built on darkness, for in Cindermere, the spirits never rested.